Hi everyone, here's the presentation that I put together for the CSTA conference back at the beginning of March. I had originally put this together and presented it at the conference. You can find the recording from the conference on my website, but I also wanted to re-record it just because I wanted to go back and address some things in a little bit more detail and kind of show some of the things that I skimmed over, but you can find that recording on my website as well. But here is integrating artificial intelligence in the classroom. So, a couple things that I want to talk about is just first of all introducing, what AI actually is because there's plenty of misconceptions. We'll talk about AI tools for educators, kind of how you can use it as a teacher, how you can use it ethically as a student, and how it can be used ethically in academics in general. And, we'll kind of wrap things up with just kind of a broad discussion at the very end. So again, for those of you that don't know me, again, my name is Daniel Shelagowski. I teach computer science at Craig High School in Janesville, and I'm currently working on, right now, finishing my doctorate in AI. I'll be defending probably in a couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks from now or so, depending on whenever this video is uploaded. But I will have been finished with that. So most of my research has been AI related things, for the last 3-4 years now. So it's something that I'm really passionate about, and there's a lot of misconceptions with it, and especially as the field is growing, people need to be aware of how it works truly, and how it can be used for good, because it seems like everyone is using it for bad. Is what it seems like. So, a couple things that we'll discuss. First of all, what is AI? Well, AI in general just refers to simulating human intelligence in machines that are programmed to think and learn like people. So there's lots of different types of AI. Kind of the main ones that we study as computer scientists are things like machine learning, which is kind of a direct extension of statistics. It comes from a field called statistic learning. Statistical learning is just things like linear regression for those of you that have studied that level of mathematics, but also being able to optimize that equation and try and get it to best fit the data as well as possible. So they're algorithms that we can train that are just really good at predicting things, and it's pretty much just that. It's just math. All of these are just math. So machine learning, give it some data, it makes some predictions on it. Deep learning is kind of an extension of machine learning, where it's a subset that's focused on using neural networks to do a lot of the same things that we do with machine learning, but doing things like more so generating stuff, like generating art or music or videos or text. That's usually done using a neural network of some sort, just because that data is much larger, and we try to separate things out. Usually machine learning is used for like tabular data, like anything in like an Excel sheet. Deep learning is used for less heterogeneous data, something that I can train it. This is specifically on how to generate music notes or something. Reinforcement learning is basically training AI to do little game-like actions in some sort of environment. So things like basic self-driving cars. A lot of them, people are studying self-driving cars using reinforcement learning. I give it some policy. Here are the rules that you have to follow. You get points for driving straight. You lose points if you kind of cross the lines, or you hit a pedestrian in this simulation. Hopefully it's a simulation, right? So reinforcement learning is a really cool one. Again, these all kind of overlap. There's also natural language processing, which is just any sort of AI or machine learning algorithm used to understand, interpret, or generate human language and speech. You've probably seen this with ChatGPT, for example, but there's lots of other NLP models that exist. And computer vision, which is where we take a model and train it to do things like object detection or image segmentation, or some combination of both. Again, these are all things. Self-driving cars basically use all of these sorts of things, but a lot of other technologies do too. You probably have used a machine learning algorithm without even knowing it. Anytime that you go shopping on like Amazon, for example, those recommendation algorithms are probably machine learning algorithms that are trained on your subset of your browsing history or your shopping history or those sorts of things. That's how we personalize data to a user. So the more data that we have on someone, the better we can train a model to that specific person. What about in education? So in education, there's a lot of use cases for AI. The big one is personalized learning. There are some universities out there, I can't remember what the names, but I've seen a couple of universities that teach classes. It might have been the University of Waterloo. They have a lot of cognitive science related stuff, but there's a university that teaches like an AI for education class where they have a system that's kind of like a simulator that you can use to train a model to be like a tutor bot. Like if I'm a history teacher, I want to train an AI to teach, World War II, for example. You can make a model that is kind of like ChatGPT, like it's just like a chatbot style thing, where you can give it some prompts and some questions, and the user can get some information back that they can hopefully learn from. So there's a lot of use cases for that. That's something that teachers specifically are being trained on. Also, things just as basic as efficiency and automation. So automating any sort of administrative tasks. Let us do more teaching. Let us do less paperwork. Please. Anything that we can do to make our lives easier is a good thing. And that's the whole point of, advancing technology. It's to make things easier. But also it's used to make things more accessible. So lots of speech to text or text to speech or any of those other sort of accessible technologies. A lot of those are best done using machine learning models of some sort without you probably even knowing it. And things like auto-completion, for example. If I'm using an autocomplete or some like text to braille machine or anything like that, a lot of those predictive algorithm things, well, it's natural language processing. It's done using machine learning most of the time. So a couple things that we'll talk about. We'll demonstrate practical ways that AI can assist teachers in things like, again, lesson planning, problem solving, automation. We'll talk about ethical considerations for students using AI, including generating creative work and solving complex problems. Yes, allowing students to generate work for them. There are ways to do that correctly without plagiarism. And again, same thing with talking about the academic ethics of using AI, and again, maintaining integrity and originality. So, the goal is to leave you with insights and any sort of tools to effectively integrate AI in your classroom, not just for you, but also for your students, or, maybe mostly just for you. Again, anything that we can do to make our lives easier is a benefit. So first thing is AI tools for educators. So the big one, in education, AI can transform, teaching and learning. So it gives us ways to, have some tools available to enhance our workflow, or even simple things to kind of engage students. There's a lot of AI tools out there. In fact, I updated this list since I did the conference presentation just literally 2 days ago. This is March 7th now, but so things like educational bots, for example, anything that could automate interaction or providing students with immediate responses to queries. A lot of these are done, again, using neural networks, or, for example, the subset of neural networks like large language models. Those are deep learning models. And again, big examples, most people have heard of ChatGPT. Google Gemini is a big one. Bing Chat is kind of an interface to ChatGPT that also provides web access and like reference managers and things like that. Really cool. Anthropic Claude is a very big one that's popped off recently. That's kind of on the same playing field as GPT and Gemini. So that's one to keep an eye out for. Jasper AI, Gradescope. Those are ones that are specifically more tailored towards education. Anything computer science related, GitHub Copilot is a big one. Code Whisperer, Cody AI, Paradox AI, Quillbot, Perplexity, Socratic, and Notes GPT are ones that are probably more usable to, just general subject teachers. So Notes GPT, for example, if I give it like a lecture recording, it could transcribe that lecture and then give me like a summary and like a breakdown of different things like bullet point style, kind of like if I give you a recording of this lecture, something like Notes GPT or possibly Socratic, they could then break that down, kind of like Cornell Notes, essentially, just breaking things down, bullet points and summaries, and giving you kind of the key details and whatnot. There's also content generators where we can create customized learning materials and assessments. Again, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, those are the big ones for generating things. Notebook LM is good for science teachers, especially like if you're teaching like math, statistics, or any sort of computational science, like bioinformatics or any sort of computer-based lab, like if you're using Python or R or any of those sorts of things. Jasper AI, Beautiful AI, WriteSonic, Copy AI, Writer, those are all ones for just writing specifically. And again, there's so many of them, and they keep popping up every single day. CurryPod and Education Copilot are other cool ones that general teachers might be more interested in. And also there's AI-based data analytics tools, because again, these are statistical models. They can help you or just do analysis for you. So things like analyzing student performance to tailor educational strategies. If I give you 100 exam scores of, my math students, for example, I want to break that down and see, what things are people struggling with, what specific topics are people most losing points on. You'll see similar things if you have access to AP Classroom, where it shows you like students are missing out on this standard and this standard and this standard. And the AP readers provide the AP reports at the end of the exam year and all of that sort of thing. That same stuff you can get from tools like Gradescope, Monkey-Learn, and CurryPod, and I think Formative AI as well. So those are ones to look into, just in general. Or, again, for administrative analysis, things like, attendance and all of those sorts of things, it's just basic analysis stuff. So again, there's plenty of benefits. Things like efficiency, just saving time on administrative tasks, but also personalization. What if I have a student that's interested in something that I don't know about? I personally don't know super much about chemistry, but if I have a student that's interested in doing something with computational chemistry, like chem informatics, for example, I don't know enough personally to make lessons that can engage that student at the level that they're performing in that subject, but I can generate something specifically for them. I can give them supplemental work or give them assignments that can help them, specifically in the field that they want to study in. And that is something that I did earlier this year. And, just making things more engaging. Again, you can make, dynamic assignments for students. If I have a learning management system, for example, that allows for dynamic assessments, I can make something that will generate assignments for students based on, what they're doing bad at, what they need more practice with. There's lots of different things that we could do, and, there's unlimited potential. Lesson planning. There's lots of different things that we can do to use AI for lesson planning. One of them is just streamlining preparation. So using AI to gather resources, curate content, structure lesson plans based on curricular standards and student interests. Again, kind of the same idea as what I mentioned with a student interested in chemistry, for example. But also, you could say, here's the standards that I'm trying to teach for this lesson. Help me create a writing assignment that covers using semicolons to separate different clauses or something like that. If there's some specific state standard or national standard that you're trying to prep students for. But also things like, again, adaptive learning paths. You can design lessons that adapt to the learning style and pace of each student, giving them a personalized education. Again, some examples of this: AI curated articles and videos. You could have a AI tool that constantly looks for the latest, peer-reviewed resource or, nationally, renowned video publisher in some educational content provider or something like that. Or, interactive simulations. Again, you could custom design a GPT model that is like a role play sort of thing that allows me to interact with this bot that can answer questions about this lab that I'm working on, for example. I'm trying to make a lab that will teach me the Krebs cycle. My goodness, would that have been nice to have something that can, answer my questions kind of back and forth. Why does this happen? Why does this happen? There's lots of different potential in this. And again, personalized education, I can't stress enough. I did a bioinformatics program last year, and one of the big focuses right now with bioinformatics is using machine learning and deep learning models and all of those sorts of things and all of these bioinformatic algorithms to do things like personalized medicine. Everyone has different body chemistries and they need different levels of medication and different dosages and things like that, or different drugs in general. So we're using these different algorithms and these different models to make up, here's a model of this person. Here's what their blood chemistry looks like. Here's what their genetic makeup looks like. I need a drug that will cure XYZ thing or will treat XYZ thing. You know, you can personalize medicine to the individual user. Personalized stuff is one of the most useful applications of AI. And again, just like what I mentioned before, we could make an AI model, again, even just a GPT thing that it just allows us to do real-time problem solving, just providing instant assistance for various different things. Like if I made like a little chatbot system, again, I could have it answer questions without giving students exact answers. Like if they prompt the model with the actual question, you could have it filter that out, for example. So you could make a worksheet and say, here's the questions for this worksheet. If you see these questions, don't answer them, but give them some hints. That would be really all that it needs to know. And again, we can use this to just do, more kind of creative problem solving, encourage students to approach problems creatively by using and presenting AI generated challenges. If you can, dynamically generate some challenge for maybe a gifted student, for example, they need something that's more difficult than what you're currently giving them. Well, I have no idea. I'm running out of ideas. The student already knows everything. What can I do? Well, ask an AI model that knows that subject, and they'll probably generate something that can challenge that student because you know what ability level they're at. This student is a junior in high school, but they're performing at the same level as a junior in college. What do I give them at this point? You can prompt it with those sorts of things. And again, for example, I could make a model or, use an AI tool to do things like breaking down complex equations step by step. Like, again, the equation for linear regression. If I looked at that, I would have no clue what it means. But I could prompt ChatGPT and say, can you explain what this equation is doing? I have, L equals, theta, like theta 1 times x times theta 0 or plus theta 0 or something like that. What does any of that mean? I could give ChatGPT that equation and have it break down what are these variables, what do they mean, what is this equation doing, how is it finding this solution, how am I supposed to use this, how am I supposed to apply this, when will I ever use this in the real world? You can finally answer that question with any subject or anything that your students are learning. Or again, science queries, for example, generating explanations for scientific phenomena tailored to students' comprehension levels. This part especially. What if I am a physics teacher, for example, and I don't know much about computer science, but students should know about things like quantum computers. Well, they're in physics 1. I can't teach them about quantum mechanics yet. I don't know much about computer science, but I should at least know how a qubit works, a quantum bit. Well, can you explain how a qubit works using, terminology for a freshman in high school? Something along those lines that they might specifically know, or you could give it specific verbiage that you use in your class that they could relate that content to. And again, customized learning materials, creating educational content, generating quizzes. Generating quizzes, worksheets, lecture notes, especially, is what I do. And educational games. You could literally just have AI program a game for you that's based on, whatever your lesson is. You just say, hey, make me a game with Pygame and Python, and make it teach me about electrolysis. I guess you could make a game out of that. Why not? Anytime that I need a new worksheet, I know my content, so I say, hey, make me a worksheet on vector arithmetic. I want 5 questions on vector addition and 5 questions on vector subtraction. All right, that's perfect. Now can you generate me an answer key for that worksheet? Hey, can you make me a 15-question quiz on basic vector math now? Can you make me an answer key about it? Perfect. Or, well, maybe I don't remember much about, linear algebra that I took as a junior in college. Can you make me lecture notes for teaching these things for students? I'll show that in a moment. Or, again, creating dynamic assessments. You could create adaptive tests that adjust in difficulty based on students' response. Again, personalized learning. Or, creative writing prompts. You might look up, hey, I want some AI generated ideas for story starters on, something based on Edgar Allan Poe or H.P. Lovecraft or something like that. Give me some ideas similar to the kind of short story writing that these famous authors have written. And again, automation of tasks, something like grading and providing feedback. Again, we have tools like Google Forms, for example. You can make up a multiple choice test in Google Forms, but if you have a written response problem, you still have to go and grade that by hand unless, you have an exact answer or whatever the case may be. But you could use an AI tool that will go through, check to see if the student's answer is correct or if it meets some criteria. You could even provide the AI with a rubric and have it look for those specific things in your rubric and have it generate a paragraph or two of feedback based on whatever their response is. Or, you could make a Python script or a small program or something like that to automatically record attendance or participation or, integrating some classroom management system for efficiency. I could literally make a computer vision model that will look at my infinite campus and also look at who's all in my classroom and look at their faces and look to see who's all in attendance and then mark them as present or not. I mean, that's kind of a very, very high level sort of thing, but that is a possible thing that's not very unrealistic. Or again, administrative assistance, any sort of thing that requires optimization, mathematical optimization like scheduling. If I need to do scheduling for how am I going to assign this class and this class and this class when, I've got these students that signed up and these students that signed up. As a counselor, for example, I might use AI to do that sort of optimization for me. Or, communicating with parents. I could literally make an AI model that will respond to parent emails for me. That sure would be nice. Or, again, any sort of other routine administrative tasks, anything that can free up your time to do more of teaching. So a couple demonstration things that I want to show you. We'll look at just like an intro to ChatGPT, talk about planning curricula, generating lecture notes, generating the assessments and solutions, and automating routine tasks. I've also got in the slides, I've got the link to, this is a Replit. It's just like an online code editor basically, but I've got all of my notes on the prompts that I'm going to use. So you can access that link and see these things. I basically just use these and kind of copy and paste them and change them. I haven't typed these up until this point, but this is basically what I do just mentally anyway. And again, if you use something like ChatGPT and you ever aren't happy with the output, either just edit your prompt to be more explicit or more detailed, or just hit the regenerate button and have it run it again. So a lot of ways that I kind of think about these sorts of things is, I will give it a sort of descriptor prompt. Here's what I'm trying to do. Can you help me do this? Okay, now that you know what I'm doing, can you help me do this part and this part and this part? Or now that you know these things, can you write a lesson plan for this or this or this? Or something as simple as error correction. There are times where, like I was in college, for example, and I would be in a computer science class, and the professor would be writing some code, and then they would go to run it, and it wouldn't work. And then they're super old, so it's going to take them a long time to read the code, and okay, where's the error? And they're not using a very helpful code editor that's not going to show them where the error is. And then you're just stuck sitting there for a long time, possibly. I just walked out of that class, I'm not going to lie. So, whenever I have an error that comes up, if I can't solve something in like 15 seconds, I instantly open up another tab with ChatGPT, paste it in the relevant code, and say, what am I doing wrong? Why am I getting this error? Same thing if I was trying to work out an equation on a whiteboard, for example. If I'm trying to do a partial derivative, for goodness sake, if I was doing a partial derivative and I knew what the right answer was supposed to be, but I couldn't get the steps in between. Okay, what am I doing wrong? I'm trying to solve for, this partial derivative with respect to x. Where am I going wrong? What step did I do wrong? So, for example, let's take a look at this. So this is in, again, ChatGPT. This is the 3.5 model. I have GPT-4 on my personal account. I think it's worth paying for, honestly, because I use it pretty much every day. I go to ChatGPT sooner than I do to Google for most things because I'm doing very complicated things. I want sufficient answers tailored to the problem that I'm having, rather than having to scrape through internet forums from like 2002, because they might not be specific enough, or they might have solved it without posting what the solution was. So this is a brand new account. Again, you can pay for GPT-4. It's not too much different, but it is a much more capable model in terms of what can it do numerically. If you're trying to generate like a math worksheet or statistics worksheet along with the answer key, for example, or generating code, it might not be very good at doing those specific things to give you the answers. It's not very good at number solving, with GPT 3.5 at least. GPT 4 can pass most AP exams, which is pretty insane. And that includes all of the math ones. So GPT-4, if you need really mathematical heavy stuff, highly recommend, or computer science heavy stuff, or just science heavy stuff in general. If you're just, like a humanities person, you probably don't really need anything more than GPT 3.5. And it's also a much faster model anyway. So let's paste in this prompt. You can also look at some of these examples, but let's say I'm working on designing a mini class on cybersecurity and cryptography. What should the weekly plan be for a 4-week course? Okay, week 1, Intro to Cybersecurity. This is a pretty good overview, kind of just overviewing all these things, and then the last day of the week is a practical exercise. Second week is cryptography. Okay, these are pretty good. Third week is network security. These are really good. Week 4, that's pretty good too. Future trends. I mean, for a 4-week mini course, this is great. If I need to teach an AP Summer Institute on cybersecurity for some reason, this is a great curriculum. Again, you still have to be the expert on the subject material as a teacher. Hopefully you are. But this can give you, the steps in between. And again, I don't really care about, where is it pulling this from. It's not pulling this from a specific university syllabus. When I designed my original syllabi, mine are very detailed. I was looking at 3 or 4 different college syllabi and saying, okay, when are they teaching this? When are they teaching this? What's the order that they're teaching this? I care very much about scaffolding. And I would say that this is a pretty much perfect curriculum right from scratch on the first try. But let's say I don't really like this order specifically. Let's say I want to change this. I want week 2 to be on networking and internet protocols. And there it is. There's a perfect example. And then it goes right into secure communication right afterward. That's a very good curriculum. So, it's not using someone else's material. It's not copying from someone else. It's looking at, okay, I've seen 5 billion syllabi from cybersecurity classes. It's just grabbing, basically one word at a time, what's the next probable thing? If I were to give you 100 million syllabi and you made a histogram of all of the words and the frequencies and then figured out, if I see the word overview, what word usually comes next? Probably the word of. If I see introduction, probably to. Okay, well, I also know I have to fit in the word cryptography somewhere, so that comes next. And it's just doing that same thing. It's just looking at patterns in previous data that it's learned. And it's learned a lot of data, and GPT-4 has learned even more data. Or, same thing. Let's get a little bit more detailed. Can you list the topics each week should cover? Let's say I don't get this. I'm going to modify this. Just give me the title of each week without giving me specific daily plans. Perfect. That's all that I wanted. Okay, now can you list the topics each week should cover? And then I'm back to where I started, basically. Or, let's say, Can you write a lesson plan for week 1 along with a corresponding assignment? So what's week 1? Week 1 covers intro to cybersecurity and cryptography and talks about, what they do, what their basic concepts are. So generate a lesson plan with a corresponding assignment idea. There's my objective. There's my lesson structure. It even breaks it down. Like if this is like a 2-hour course, for example, I could also specify my lessons are exactly 1 hour long. This is what I want to fit in that 1 hour. Practical application, and then there's the assignment. There's the title, there's the objective, there's the instructions. This is a very good assignment, and this is literally something I could just copy and paste this. Just copy and paste this into Microsoft Word. It feels naughty to do it, but just copy and paste it into Word. This is a complete assignment. You don't have to do anything else. Just read it, see if it looks good. Okay, as an expert, I know that this is correct. Or, again, if I'm doing something that just needs simple fixing, I've got this code, I'm trying to figure out why it's not working. I know that I'm trying to teach kids how to take in user input using a bash script, and I want to double the number using that script. Well, this isn't working, so I'm going to open a new chat, paste in my code, and say, help me fix this bash script. Here's what it's supposed to do, and it's not working. I'm not even going to tell it why it's not working. So here it's given me, wow, yeah, this is really good. It even checks to see if the input is valid to do math on. It tells me all the things that it fixed and what was the problem you had to solve. Wow, there we go. I don't even need someone to proofread my code anymore. Just kidding. That doesn't work like that. But you get the idea. It tells me all the things that I did wrong and how I can improve them. So for someone like me, it's much easier for me as just the way that I think. I was really intimidated by math. I couldn't make sense of these really long equations. I didn't understand that it was basically just a different syntax of code, and variables are literally just variables like in code and all of those sorts of things. I didn't want to believe that math was computer science and vice versa. But something like this, if I can figure out, okay, here's a problem, here's the solution, I can usually work out how they got to the solution. Sometimes that's all someone might need, and a lot of times for me, that's all that I need to solve a problem. So this is a great resource for that. Or again, what about planning a curriculum? Again, this is, for example, about an intro to statistics class and experimental design. Using the programming language R, and I want it to be like an upper high school level class. So help me make a curriculum for this. And that is absolutely incredible. So basic statistics, R, RStudio, descriptive statistics, probability, sampling distributions, confidence intervals, hypothesis testing, 1 sample test, 2 sample, all these different things. This is a really, really great introductory statistics and experimental design class using R to do the programming. So if you're a statistics teacher and you don't know R, but you want to learn R so you can teach R, because kids should know how to apply statistics, teach them how to apply math. That's what we do in computer science. You as a statistics teacher should know statistics programming. Know Python or R, at least, please. It will greatly benefit your students to be able to apply it. And now, let's say, can you create 3 to 5 bullet points for each week listing the major topics? It kind of already did that, but let's see what it kind of gives me for this. This might be a little bit too much, but, let's see what we got. And it's just giving me, kind of more detail of what sort of things I should know. Well, if I'm going to teach plotting, I need to know that I need to use the ggplot library. That's what everyone's using in R to do basic plotting. So this is a very, very good example. In this case, it stopped early. If that ever happens, just type continue. And it's just that easy. Perfect. I've got all celebrating the completion of the course and students' achievements. what a wholesome thing. You can't tell me AI is evil when it wants to help celebrate students. That's pretty cool. Okay, now help me make an assignment for, let's see, where is linear regression? Help me make an assignment for week 10 that helps students apply all the concepts using R with RStudio and any relevant functions and equations they need to know. And it literally tells me, here's the code functions you got to know, here's how to submit, here's what you got to do, what you got to know, all the objective, the instructions. This is a perfect assessment. So if you want to teach a new course, for example, and you don't know too much about the subject material, hopefully you have some baseline that you can then expand on and extrapolate using these sorts of tools. Or for me personally, I create my own lecture notes for most of my classes. My AP classes, I write all of my own lecture notes for. I have a textbook for AP Computer Science A that I wrote. I'm working on finishing the textbook for AP Principles, but I have over 100 pages of lecture notes that I've written. That would have been much easier if I would have had access to ChatGPT from the very start, because I can then personalize it to the students. Say, this is a little bit too complex for these kids. I need to dial this back a little bit and give a little bit simpler explanations. So if you've never heard of LaTeX before, or if you're familiar with HTML, for example, don't look at that, that's the old example I did. But there's things like HTML, Markdown, LaTeX is kind of the big one. There's these different languages, kind of like programming languages, but not, that are meant for just doing manual writing of documents that have some formatting. Kind of like if I gave you a Word doc, but as code. How would you write out that this text is bold, or this is a heading with this big font, or something like that? For people in STEM, you have to know LaTeX. If you are a STEM person, you should 100% know how to use LaTeX. It's not very difficult. It's a really, really simple thing to learn. But for example, this is the website Overleaf. This is a LaTeX editor. So I'm going to make a new blank project and just call it new test. Loads up very fast if I hit recompile here. So it gives me this template document, and you can see these are the commands that it's using to make the document, put the title in. It's making a new section. I want to generate lecture notes. I want it to look nice and have a really clean formatting. And if you've seen LaTeX before, or if you haven't seen it, you probably have. People write LaTeX documents all the time. You've probably had professors that have provided you with lecture notes in LaTeX before. Most of my computer science classes did. It just makes really nice looking documents. So I usually say, write me some lecture notes on XYZ thing using LaTeX. And if it doesn't give me the actual LaTeX code, I say, can you provide that in LaTeX code that I can paste into Overleaf? Or if you want something simpler, again, this document was written using Markdown, which is kind of like a simpler version. This is what this looks like. Again, you're better off using LaTeX because it generates a nice looking paper. But here's, for example, I'm writing a course packet of lecture notes in LaTeX for an 8-week course on C++. Do it in parts. Can you help me write the content for chapter 1? And provide diagrams where it's helpful and give code examples using a package called Minted. You could also ask it what's minted, or what can I do to kind of give some highlighting to statistics or some visualizations or anything like that. So here's chapter 1, introduction. I want to make this chapter have an intro to C++, console output, variables, user input, arithmetic and assignment operators, and how to make their first program. This is all that I'm going to give it. So I'm going to go to GPT, paste this in, and it's giving me some pretty good looking notes. This is a very good start, and again, it didn't provide that in the LaTeX syntax, but it sort of is. This is technically in Markdown. It's just automatically rendered by ChatGPT's user interface. Can you provide that in LaTeX code that I can paste into Overleaf. So now it's taking everything that it just wrote and turning it into LaTeX syntax. And again, when you see this, my goodness, LaTeX just looks so nice, especially for math. If you're doing any sort of math typesetting, you gotta be using LaTeX, or you have to know how to use it at least. Please don't use the default math typer thing in Microsoft Word that uses Cambria math. Use this instead. And also, it's very easy to learn the commands. Just put /delta if you want to make the delta symbol. So, let's render what it typed. So chapter 1, introduction. There's some code errors that, I could ask it to fix if I really care, but, taking a look at these, there's some good examples. There's some code examples. It's telling me how to do user input. It's made a little table of arithmetic operators, assignment operators. And here's your first program. You want to learn C++? Now's your chance to do so. There's your lecture notes. Don't have to do any work for it, and it's perfect. There's a library that it didn't import. Sometimes you might need to say, my error braces are not being rendered correctly. You just have to import probably AMS math. So if I do that, use package AMS math and AMS Simb, and probably AMS fonts. And if that doesn't work still, well, ask ChatGPT. Why, whoops, sorry, wrong tab. Why is my left shift operator rendering as 2 upside down points? Oh, there we go. Let's take a look at this. These also, if you're going to do anything math related, you should have those imported. And look at that. Fixed it. Perfect. Good enough. Or, I can also grab one of these, see if this looks any different. Kind of the same deal. Again, you get the idea. Okay, now can you write, LaTeX lecture notes using text pictures and example codes for chapter 2. So just, follow up. Okay, can you create an assignment for each week / chapter, whatever you're trying to do that demonstrates the concept? So make an assignment for chapter 1, make an assignment for chapter 2. You can make a whole curriculum this way, and you don't have to feel bad about it. AI does it for you, and it's happy to do so, because it doesn't think, it just makes stuff. It's pretty cool. Or let's go back here. Let's say I'm generating a class on, or I'm teaching a class on linear algebra for upperclassmen in high school. Can you create a worksheet using LaTeX on vector arithmetic with 5 problems? It should cover addition and subtraction. So paste. I'm going to make a new file, vectors. And it's done before I can even finish making the file, basically. Look at that. That's pretty nice. And that's all I need. And again, I could always say, can you turn those into row vectors instead of column vectors, or, whatever your preference is, or, arrow brace vectors, basically. Anything that you want, just ask. Okay, now create an answer key for those problems, also in LaTeX. Be as specific as possible. So I'll make vectors key, and it's done. And again, this is where I go through and I double check to see, okay, is this math correct? Well, it said, okay, this is 2, 4, -3, 5, so it should be 6 and 2, which it is. So this is correct, and I would do that for all of these. So anytime that I have AI generate a worksheet, I always work out the solution by hand to see if I get the same thing and make sure that the steps are correct. Okay, now follow up again. Can you create a worksheet now on still using LaTeX on vector products with 5 problems? Should cover dot product and cross product for 2D vectors. Again, whatever you need. Or say I'm teaching a basic data science or data analysis class. I want to make a data set for my students using Python, write me a Python script that will randomly generate a data set called whatever thing that has 1,000 rows of randomly generated data. There's a library in Python called Faker that can generate fake anything. Like if you want a random first name, last name, IP address, all of this stuff, I could have it generate this whole script for me. I don't even need to know Python. I just happen to know this library. And this is correct. This is a really, really good looking example, and it provides it in a really nice formatted setup. The code is really easy to read. Again, if I'm new to Python, this might be really, really helpful for me to see the syntax of how to do this. Or say, I want to teach my data science students how to use the scikit-learn library. Can you write a Python script to load in a data set, separate it into different parts, and then perform a linear regression on it, and then plot the scatter plot with the regression line? That's a lot of stuff. I'm doing this in a Jupyter notebook. For those of you that teach science or math or statistics, you should know about this website called DeepNote. It's an interactive programming environment that lets you do what people call computational essays. So you can put code in between notes and those sort of things. This is my stuff from AP Principles, for example. Just me giving different examples of all these cool things that, I can kind of break down into different parts. And like if I look at this one, for example, or this one, we made a decision tree model that can load in pictures of handwritten digits, and then it will classify what number was handwritten. That's what the model looks like, and I can have it predict new stuff. And, I don't have to do any of the work to train this model. I can just ask ChatGPT to write the code for me, and I could paste all of these different blocks of code into a Jupyter notebook. Again, if you're a statistics teacher, this is a good environment to learn something like R or Julia, especially if you're a math or science teacher. Or, again, I'm trying to make a game to teach my students basic physics. I want a simple demo that demonstrates angular velocity. They should be able to click on the corner of a square and have it launch in the opposite direction before landing on the floor. And this does work, but just in the interest of time, I'll skip over that one. You can test it yourself. Or write a simple plagiarism detector in Python that takes in 2 code files and validates them with a score similar to Turnitin. So let's see. Maybe I'm doing something novel and I need a plagiarism detector for some specific thing. And it's already done. I've got a usable Python file that I can just give it the path to the first file, the path to the second file, and it'll tell me how similar those 2 documents are. That's amazing. That's all I have to do. So, let's go back here. Now, let's talk about ethical use of AI by students. So here's where people get a little unsure about the idea of, but there's a lot of good ways that students can use AI ethically and, without plagiarizing. So the biggest one, the simplest one, is just idea generation, using AI to brainstorm and refine research project topics, encouraging critical thinking and creativity. And again, they can customize these and, base them to whatever their ability level is or what their knowledge subset is. Whatever the case may be, they can personalize their own project to their specific niche interests or their ability. Or, maybe they want something that will challenge them to learn something new. Which, again, they can use AI to explore related subjects, find gaps in existing research, suggest new angles for investigation. What kind of things could I do that maybe haven't been done before? For example, again, using keyword-based prompts, they could input subjects of interest to generate a list of potential research questions or topics. For me, for example, in graduate school, every single class I did, we had to do some sort of a research project or research paper or some combination of both. My goodness, have I had to write a lot of papers for classes. And I keep doing the same thing. I do something music related. I do something AI related. What about bioinformatics? I was brand new to bioinformatics. What do I do for a final project? I know AI. I know this. What can I do that combines bioinformatics with AI? Well, just, hey, can you give me 20 research project ideas that can use these sorts of things? Maybe I'm more interested in this. Or, again, use AI to identify and analyze current trends in the subject area and get, some new perspectives for research. So maybe I want to do something that's completely novel. Maybe I'm working on, my master's thesis or dissertation, and I want a novel research topic. You could use a model that's internet connected, like Bing Chat, and have it look for, what are the most recent papers in this very, very specific field. And again, talk to a librarian. They can also help you verify and, look for resources related. And, if you don't know how to use search engine operators, that's also something that you should know if you're doing that sort of thing. But, you can ask AI to teach you that too. Now, in computer science it's a little iffy, but there are right ways to do it. So, for example, coding assistance, things like error analysis. Again, if I get stuck for more than 15 to 30 seconds, I just grab the code and paste it into ChatGPT. I've solved 90% of these problems before. I'm sick of doing it over and over again. I want something that will just do it for me. I don't want to have to look and think about it, especially when I've got a bunch of kids that are all getting the same problem over and over, and I don't remember how I fixed it last time. I don't remember how I fixed it the time before that. Just help me fix this instantly so I can move on to the next person. Or again, a learning support. Help explain to me how does a for loop work in Python, or how does electrolysis work, or how does the Krebs cycle work. It doesn't have to be programming specifically, but if I'm trying to implement some complex thing, it can be a way to just grab explanations very quickly, like a question and response, just tutor essentially. Or again, project guidance, offer suggestions for project improvements and optimization, getting a deeper understanding of coding practices. This is something that's really important to any kid that's interested in going into software engineering. They need to know about things like code refactoring and code smells and design patterns and those sorts of things. And if you don't know them, for one, you should. And if you don't know them especially, you should use AI to help you learn those things so you can help your students learn those things. And where your knowledge gap is, that's where AI can fill in that blank. Because they're going to have someone above them that's, okay, well, your code looks good, but, you got a bunch of this, you got a bunch of duplicate code, you got a bunch of duplicate functions, this is going to run really slow. You can use AI to optimize those sorts of things, or even a mathematical equation you can optimize. But if you're going to do these sorts of things, it is important to have discussions on boundaries. So again, emphasize the importance of original work, using AI as a tool for assistance rather than a means to bypass learning. By far the most important part. And again, encourage students to critically evaluate AI suggestions, foster discernment and independent thoughts. You can have AI generate this stuff for you, but you still need to evaluate it. Is this truthful? Is this something that I can actually discern is real? Can I find resources to back up what this model is saying? Can I find citations that are relevant? All those sorts of things. Again, if you're doing a research project in like English, for example, you can have it give you a baseline, but then you still need to paraphrase the AI and, find some, resources to back up your stuff. And, use AI responsibly, discuss the ethical implications of AI dependency, and, understand that it has limitations, it has biases. It's trained on human data. Human data is inherently biased and limited. So, we have to be aware of that because, if it's helping us do work for us, we have to have some other step in between to filter out data. So that's a very important one. And again, provide clear guidelines on when and how AI tools can or should be used for educational purposes so they're responsible and it's integrated effectively. So you should have a policy in your syllabus on how students can or when they can use AI, or if they can use it, or what ones they can use. All of those sorts of things are things that you could have a discussion on, or, just provide a little paragraph in your syllabus. Here's when we'll do this. Or maybe you'll provide a whole lesson plan that teaches students how to use AI effectively without plagiarizing work. So let's look at a couple things for this. Again, this is all related to learning assistance in some way or another. So generating project ideas, reviewing and summarizing literature, finding research gaps and trends, analyzing errors and optimizing and supporting and guiding learning. So again, these are my section 2 prompts here. So let's say I need to create a research project for my undergraduate biochemistry class that includes a lab and a research paper based on the lab report. Help me come up with 10 different project ideas that would be good for a sophomore level class with 1 month to do the project. That's very specific, but that's what we want. And right here, looking at this, if I'm a 200 level student, I would see something like gene expression analysis. This is a perfect 1 month project to do a little report on. This is a really, really good one. And again, have it generate 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 different projects and, get some ideas. You'll eventually find one that sticks. Or, for example, for my AP Computer Science principal students, there's specific rules for what they're supposed to do for their project. They're supposed to make a program. It needs to have a list. It needs to have a function. There needs to be some algorithm involved, all those sorts of things. Okay, here's the rules for this project that I need to do. Can you give me 10, 15, 100, 1,000 different project ideas? This is what I did, and I also said in this case I want to do it in the Ruby programming language without any added libraries. But I did this for my principal students because I had them practice with 3 different projects. So I gave ChatGPT, here's the rules for what this project needs. Find projects that meet this criteria. And hey, there's one for me. Music library organizer. That's specifically tailored to my interest. If I'm a student looking through this, I can find something that looks interesting to me. Maybe you know that you have students that are interested in Hispanic culture, for example. How do I make a program that I can, do some analysis of, some data from some country or something like that will help me, better understand some specific thing. There's ways that you can implement this into anything. And you should, by the way, you should be doing, interdisciplinary lessons and teaching across the curriculum and all of those sorts of things. Get into your art department and your STEM department and, talk to people and see what they're teaching. What are they learning right now in music that I can teach as a computer science teacher? I know most of my kids are taking music theory, for example, right now. Not really, but, say I know that almost everyone in this class is taking music theory. Hey, can you write me a project idea that helps students, do harmonic analysis with Python with like a computer vision model or something? You could do some crazy stuff. Or again, I'm taking a course on bioinformatics and need a research paper project idea. If possible, I'd like to do something that combines my 2 niches, cybersecurity and bioinformatics. Provide me some project ideas that I can incorporate these 2 subjects and write a program in Python and a research paper on. Securing genomic data. That's a pretty cool one. Biometric authentication using DNA. That's a really cool one. So, some of these ideas are just you would never think of them. But AI would, because, it's got a billion different things that it's seen. So that's a really cool thing. Or, in my case, what was really helpful for me, as I got, towards the end of my doctorate, for example, and I'm trying to read all these hundreds of research papers that are coming out on AI, give me some basic literature summaries. What does this paper mean? I just need to know how they did this one specific thing. So, for example, I've got, can you provide a 2-sentence summary of this research paper? Here's the title and the abstract. That's all I'm giving it, and this is one of my own research papers. So I'll copy this prompt, go back here, paste. Again, all I give it is the title, the citation, and the abstract. And this is pretty much a perfect summary of what that paper was on. Or something a little bit more sophisticated. Maybe this is pushing the boundaries a little bit, but can you write a 2-paragraph literature review of the following paper? Use purely graduate level academic language. By the way, this is how kids can get it. Hey, can you write me an 8th grade English paper to do blah, 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 blah? They might do it and you might not know. You might not know that that's a thing that they can do. Be aware. And avoid colorful language and colorful verbiage and purple prose and all of that stuff. So I've pasted in. Here's the title, the citation, the abstract, the introduction section and the conclusion section. I've pasted in these whole sections. You could actually, with a model like Google Gemini, you can now put in like an entire paper and have it do the same thing. So it's now giving me, this is actually an APA in-text citation, there's a 2-paragraph summary of that whole paper. Yeah, and it's perfect. And it, it cites me and all of that sort of stuff. It's really, really good. And that's all that it needs. Or, again, I'm a computer science student interested in machine learning and dance, like theoretical stuff like Laban movement theory. By the way, if you don't know that, this is applicable to a lot of different performance-related fields like acting, music, conducting especially, dance. So be aware of something like that. What are some research gaps that I could possibly study and write a novel research paper on? Gesture recognition and classification. So I could classify things based on how Laban movement theory classifies things in the different, like efforts, for example. Lots of different stuff. Or I could make a model that evaluates performances in real time. Or again, I have some specific interest in computational neuroscience. What are some papers or topics specifically that I should start looking for, for a literature review? I gotta fix this typo. But let's take a look. It even says it's an exciting endeavor. So it tells me some topics. So I should know about things like BCIs, connectomics. I've never even heard about it, and I've studied comp neuroscience, so that's a really cool thing. Again, all of these different computational models and neural systems, and even here's some resources. Hey, I've never heard of NIF. That's a good place that I can find papers, or neuroscience journals like Neuron or Nature Neuroscience, and all of these other ones, or know about conferences like SFN or CNS or BI. Yes, there's a lot of different stuff, and it knows more than I know. Or again, if I'm a programming teacher, there's a lot of things like if I'm teaching a really low level language like C, for example, the programming language C has some very vague error messages. There's one that's just called a segmentation fault. It doesn't give you a line of code that's erroring. It just says seg fault and that crashes. So you can't really know unless you just fine tooth skim through it. So here's my code. What's causing the problem? Here's what's causing the problem. Here's how I should fix it. Oh, and here's the corrected code. Maybe I'll ignore this part and I'll try and fix it myself using the knowledge that it gives me. Oh, by the way, I probably should have freed the memory that I allocated manually. That's a good idea. Or again, same thing. This code, I went to my senior developer and they said that, hey, you have a vulnerability in this code. You gotta figure out what that is and how to fix it. So, what's the problem? Oh, I clicked on the wrong one, but I guess I'm inviting my neighbor to a barbecue, I guess. That's kind of cute. So what's the problem with this? By the way, dead beef is a valid hexadecimal memory address. And it says I'm writing unsaved code, and I'm using an arbitrary address, and this could cause unpredictable behavior. So this is a memory vulnerability that I intentionally wrote this way. So it tells me how to fix it and what I should do. Or again, how can I refactor this code to optimize it and remove code smells? Code smells, for people that teach computer science, these are code smells. This is refactoring.guru. Code smells are things like, how do I know that this is good code? Well, if I see these smells, if this code is smelly, if it has large methods or large classes or long parameter lists, those are things that I need to fix, or lots of duplicate code. How can I refactor this? So here's my code. I've got some duplicate code. I've got some kind of janky way that I've set up some things. How can I make this better? And it's doing things that I would have never even thought of, like using in this case, using a dictionary for the different prices. That's one way that you could do it. There's other ways that I would probably do it differently. But this is a good option, and it's combined those two methods. Uh, Actually, this is a really, really concise way of doing that. That's really cool. So yeah, this is a very, very good example of some really, really well refactored code. Or, for example, just supporting and guiding learning. Hey, there's so much terminology to know. If you're someone that's studying IT and you want to learn about networking and internet protocols, especially like in AP Computer Science Principles, there's a lot of terminology to know. Help me write a vocab sheet for a cumulative final. And let's see if there's any that it misses. That's pretty good. What about MFA? What is MFA? It's multi-factor authentication, by the way. Look at that. Perfect. Can you generate, 23 more, 24 more? Give me 100 terms, basically. You can just be as specific as possible. Or, again, if I'm a math person and I'm taking a calculus class, for the life of me, I can't remember the rules of derivation beyond just the power rule. I know the names of the other ones, but I can't remember how to do them. So, help me make a cheat sheet in LaTeX, by the way. Again, math teachers, you should know LaTeX. And again, it's so easy. You want a fraction d over dx, use the frac keyword with d and dx. And even if you're an English teacher or a history teacher, you should still learn LaTeX to make really nice looking notes for your class. Because, well, you don't even have to know it. You just ask AI to do it for you. So let's say this is calc.text. Paste this in. Look at that. Here's my common derivatives. I could ask it to label all the different rules. Which one's the power rule? Which one's the quotient rule? All these sorts of things. If I really care about the names of the rules, I could have it specify all those sorts of things. And maybe a different generation would. And again, I can just click regenerate and see if it gives me something different. Or say I want to teach myself something. I want to teach myself SQL with MySQL and PHP. What order should I learn all these different things? So I just took a web design class. I know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I want to start making dynamic websites. How can I do that with a database? So SQL is used for databases and business intelligence stuff. So if you're a business teacher, you should also know SQL because that's what Microsoft Access uses. And yeah, this is it. So this is a really good order to learn all these different things in. Of course, it starts with all the CRUD operations, and you just go from there. So let's get back to it. Let's talk about the ethics of AI in academics. So again, plagiarism and originality. Please, if you are going to use AI in your classes, define plagiarism. Clarify to your students what constitutes as plagiarism, including the use of AI to generate work that's not the student's own original thought. For example, even APA just recently came out with a citation format for generative AI because of tools like this, because it's going to happen. The AP Computer Science Principles exam, they said originally if someone uses a generative model in writing their code for the create task, if they get caught on that, well, goodbye score, you get a 0 on the AP exam. Well, then they gave up on that idea because they knew that there was no way to enforce it. So they said, well, if you use generative AI, just put a comment citing that you used AI and which one you used. That's all that you can do. And again, you just have to promote originality. So encourage students to use AI as a brainstorming and learning tool, but make sure that their final submissions are their own unique work. Also, detection and consequences. Discuss the tools and methods that other educators use to detect plagiarism and how, or what the academic consequences of submitting plagiarized work are. This is a tough one. I say use with caution and know your student's ability, but here are some examples. Content at Scale, Turnitin, Originality.ai, GPT-0, CopyLeaks, and Writer.com. These are pretty good ones at detecting baseline AI generated stuff, but there are jailbreaks for these types of models that you can say, uh, write this essay and make sure that you write it this way so it doesn't get caught by an AI detector. And of course it does it. Of course it works. You have people making AI detectors, but then the model gets better, and then the AI detector gets better, so then the model gets better again. It's like cybersecurity red and blue teams. It's constantly back and forth. The model will ultimately always be better than the detector. So, my suggestion and what I do is assess often, and I always give assessments on paper. Even if you use a lockdown browser, for example, I took a web design, or not a web design, but I took a JavaScript class for advanced web design in university. Well, problem with that is our final exam used the lockdown browser. Well, you can open up inspect elements in the lockdown browser and have access to the JavaScript console where you can run code and test code and see if there's syntax errors, and it will tell you what the errors are. If I wanted to cheat on that exam, I could have just done it because I'm on a computer. It's a programming class. There's nothing stopping me from doing so. That's why I realized if I'm that clever, I'm probably going to have students that are that clever. So I'm going to test all of my stuff on paper, always. And if students can't do some simple task or write a short essay without a computer, but their typed work, for example, is exceptional. This kid can't add 2 plus 2 on paper, but they can figure out how to do a Riemann sum on the computer. How is that possible? There's no way. They should be able to do it on paper. And if they can't, it's probably plagiarism. But you also have to know the technology. This is so important. Language models like ChatGPT have a limited and session-based memory. It does not know if it wrote a student's paper previously. If I open up another tab in ChatGPT, it does not know any of the things that I've previously asked it. It has no previous context prior to anything else that I've ever asked it before. These models don't learn like that. They don't learn from new stuff. People think, oh, well, ChatGPT is getting dumber. They're dumbing it down. It's this woke agenda or something like that. It's something crazy. It's not. It doesn't work like that. It's not how it works. These models have to be trained. It takes a long, long time to train and a lot of computing resources. And then you have a new model. That's the difference between GPT-3 and GPT-4 is the model was retrained. It was trained additionally on new stuff. That takes a long time. Models can't learn from new prompts that they're given. They're just making predictions on data. A kid can learn from doing multiple, addition and subtraction problems. AI models don't once they've already been trained. They know what they know, and it stays that way. They can have some memory, which, again, ChatGPT is session-based. So a session is each of these. This is a session. This is a session. It doesn't know that in the next session I asked it how to teach me SQL and what order I should learn SQL in. So the problem with that is there was a professor. I think there's been multiple cases in this case, but there was a professor that failed all of his students because he claimed that he took their work and pasted it into ChatGPT, and it was for like a final or something like that. He pasted all their work into ChatGPT and said, "Did you write this?" Well, the model doesn't know. Of course, it's going to say, "Yeah, that looks like something I probably wrote." Well, turns out ChatGPT wrote all of their papers. Well, no, it didn't. That's just not how it works. ChatGPT does not remember if it wrote another student's paper. The only way that you could know that would be if you logged into their account, if they even had one to begin with, and look at their history. And they can also delete their history or archive it. You just don't know. So you can't just vaguely claim that a student used AI to cheat on something or someone used AI to generate something. It's not how it works. So, again, test often and on paper. And again, best practices, teach students how to properly cite AI-generated content and other sources. So again, the AP Principles Create Task Guidelines. It has its own citation guideline for citing AI specifically. And paraphrase and analyze. Encourage critical engagement with AI-generated material including paraphrasing and adding personal analysis. If I make an AI generate a paragraph, I am then going to paraphrase that paragraph, add my own personal touch to it, and then add citations onto it to make sure that everything is correct. And again, you have to be the expert. You have to teach your students how to be the experts too. And again, AI is a learning tool, not a shortcut. So talk with your students how AI can provide these personalized learning experiences, support understanding complex concepts, and offer practice opportunities. Hey, I want some supplemental practice on this. I don't really get this. Help me make, some program to do this thing. And avoid over-reliance, because, they can become too reliant on it, and then they've hindered their learning, they've hindered their critical thinking skills. Now they can't do it without using AI. And, developing skills, and emphasize the importance of using AI to develop research, analytical, problem-solving skills, rather than bypassing these learning opportunities. It's very, very important. They can use AI to enhance learning those things. And again, provide ethical use guidelines, encourage integrity, foster an environment of honesty and integrity in using AI tools. My kids know if I see them using ChatGPT, they've probably already asked me, or if I see them on it, it's probably a kid that, okay, if they're writing some code using AI, and it's one of my past AP kids that got a 4 or 5 on the AP Computer Science A exam, they know what they're doing. They know their stuff. I don't care that they're doing it this 1 or 2 times to make this little program to test this certain thing. I don't care. They know their stuff. I know that they know. They're going to learn from what they get from the model. They're going to expand on what they're getting from the model. It's cool. It's cool having a kid do a project, having AI give them a baseline, and then they add their own stuff onto it. They can make more complex things from that. But again, set boundaries, provide clear guidelines for the acceptable use of AI in coursework and assignments, put a policy in your syllabus. So, looking ahead, moving forward with AI in education, again, you as an educator need to be informed constantly about the latest developments of AI in education. It's going to change every single day. It constantly changes. Anything in education constantly changes, but so does AI, and the two of them together, it's a nightmare to try and keep up with. There's so much stuff, and there's new tools popping up every day. So be aware of where the fields are going. What can you do? What can you use? What can you prevent the use against? Maybe, or what can you provide ethical guidelines on what students can use? What are some tools that you would allow students to use? And again, just develop ethical use cases for students, something that you would allow them to use or wouldn't, or if there's a time and place for those sorts of things. And again, encourage collaboration between other teachers and students and other, technology-oriented people to share best practices and innovative uses of AI in education, especially if you're an administrator. As an administrator, you need to know how these technologies are being used and affecting things. Again, it's so, so important. And, embrace challenges. So view challenges as opportunities for growth and learning. Continuously adopting AI integration strategies to meet educational goals is a challenge. We're constantly adjusting curricula and things like that as it is. You constantly have to adapt to AI integration as well. It's a new challenge that has appeared. And again, kind of the key points just as a refresher. AI is a tool for teachers. It can help you enhance your learning process, lesson planning, grading, personalized learning, efficiency, all those sorts of things. Students can benefit from it for research and problem solving as long as they use it ethically and responsibly. Academic integrity, the importance of maintaining originality and integrity. Use AI as an aid, not a replacement for student effort. And again, critical thinking and skills development, AI can be used to augment your learning, but it shouldn't diminish the development of these critical thinking and analytical skills. There's ways that you can use it to augment your work, but you shouldn't allow it to replace your work. So I'll leave you with this quote. This is a good one I like. That says, "By far the greatest danger of artificial intelligence is that people conclude too early that they understand it." And again, I talk about people all the time say, well, AI is, it's teaching kids that it's okay to, let aliens change their DNA. Well, what? Where does that come from? You look at an article related to AI on Facebook, and you'll see a billion different AI experts that know these crazy like ancient alien things. Um, just know how it works. Help yourself, help your students know how these things work. You especially need to know how they work. Know that they don't have permanent memory. Know that they don't remember everything. Know that their quality diminishes as they start to forget things from previous contexts. If I have one model with one session that is, I'm just constantly prompting it back and forth and back and forth, it's going to forget things over time the same way that you would. It has a short-term memory. It's called, long short-term memory is kind of the thing that we're using these days in modern deep learning. My suggestion for you is have ChatGPT, help you learn to write a very basic model. Go to ChatGPT and say, help me train a deep learning model on handwritten digit recognition. Just go to ChatGPT and say, write me a Python script that will train a deep learning model using scikit-learn to make a simple neural network that will be trained on the handwritten digit data set, and we'll see how the model is trained, see how training works, see how memory works. That's it. Get an idea of what it's doing. And I also have this link here. So what I'll say is, if you think this is a good presentation, hopefully you do, because I did put a lot of time and effort into making these slides. But if you thought that this was a good presentation, here's the reality for you. Out of this whole slideshow, all 25 slides, I wrote maybe 3 bullet points. I said, hey, I'm giving an hour-long conference presentation on integrating AI in the classroom where I'll be demonstrating tools like ChatGPT and blah, blah, blah. Help me plan out a timeline for the presentation. Like 40 minutes on this, 10 minutes on this, 10 minutes on this. There's all the slides that you just saw. Every single prompt for every single slide. The only thing that I added in were a couple points on like AI tools, because it doesn't know, its knowledge only goes back to 2021. So AI tools, like the ones for like generation and analysis and those sorts of things, because I constantly updated that. And also my points about AI detectors and all those sorts of things, those are points that I put explicitly. Everything else, you can see how I made these slides. And these are pretty much perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly what I would have typed myself by hand. But it would have taken me weeks to make. Instead, it took me about 2 days to make. So that's all I've got for you. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, either at my school email if you have that, or I've got a short personal email that you can send to. It's my business email. So you can email me there, or you can also go to my website, danielshelligowski.com. I have the link to the slides, the PDF version of the slides. You can also go to my GitHub. If I go to this link and go to education, here is integrating AI in the classroom. So there's the slides. I'll put the link to the conference recording and then this recording right afterward. So, by far, the most important thing to take away is AI can be used for good. Hopefully you're more aware of that now. Thank you so much.